All right, recording.
Okay, I'm recording on all ends.
Me too.
You're listening to the Station 71 podcast with your hosts, Mario.
Beth?
And Brian.
Intro music. Hang on 1 second. Sorry, my dog decided to open the door. Okay. So this week we're going to do probably a less serious topic, talk about some things that Disney has done that have been not so favorable, some things that maybe are unpopular opinions for us, and we'll see how much we disagree on those. But first up, as always, let's start with the news. So the big thing that we had this week was that as Toy Story Land is approaching, we're getting more details about height requirements, park hours, and the fast passes are now open. Did you guys get a chance to look at any of this stuff?
Yes, I did. Getting excited about Toy Story Land for sure. And now with all this stuff starting to come kind of creeping out, it's just adding to that.
Yeah, it's really exciting that we're getting these details now. I mean, obviously we're so close, the fast passes are opening up, so I can imagine that they're going to go pretty quick. I think we talked about last week about the tier system changing.
Right.
That's not anything new, but we also got the height requirements and stuff like that. So it's all good planning details for anybody that's getting ready for a trip that's going to be close to Toy Story Land. So good stuff. Operating hours for Hollywood Studios are going to stay kind of similar to what they were. Opening day, June 30th. It's currently at 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. and moving to 10:30 closing time throughout July and August. But that's, just what they're reporting now. Extra magic hours are offered for anyone staying on property, and they are going to include all the Toy Story Land attractions. So that's a good little tidbit there for anybody that's staying on property. Probably a good way to get all that touring in if you're going to be doing like an extra magic hour stay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else you guys want to talk about with that? I know we've kind of beat the Toy Story Land thing to death now, but
I'm still patiently waiting for any announcement on the pass holder preview.
Oh my God. I was just about to say that. I'm just like Google searching every day.
Yeah, I check my email every day to make sure, like multiple times, and then I have to start going and looking at articles to make sure I didn't accidentally miss it or my email wasn't on the list or something.
See, that's the interesting thing is I never got an email for Pandora.
Really?
I just saw the thread on the Walt Disney World subreddit, and someone had posted the link, so I clicked it and luckily got previews, but I never got an email, so that's why I've been not relying on my email for it.
I know a lot of pass holders that didn't actually get the email. One of my friends had actually recently moved down there, and I had saw the post on the subreddit, and I was like, I wonder if they've seen this. So I shot them the link and everything, and they didn't get an email. They didn't hear anything about it, but somehow they managed to get into it. So I don't know if they're like really emailing it and pushing it hard for pass holder previews and stuff like that, or if it's like a select few, but definitely Googling it and looking online is probably your best option right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering who gets the priority? Is it based on how long you've been a pass holder or what?
Or distance from them, maybe? I don't know. So after that, we had some updates for the Skyliner in both Hollywood Studios and Epcot. We got some photos released of the towers going up, and I want to say that it's not as hidden as I'd like it to be.
See, I kind of had the opposite opinion. I don't know how I feel about this still, but I think it's less hidden than I want it to be, but it's more hidden than I thought it would be, I guess, which I kind of appreciate. I feel like it doesn't look like it's going to be quite as intrusive as I had originally imagined it.
So tiebreaker, Brian, what do you think about these?
I'm not a fan of them. Just from these first couple of pictures that I've seen of them, I do think they kind of stick out, which was a worry I think we all talked about having from the announcement of these. But I don't know. I mean, just the towers, in my opinion, right now don't look good. I don't know if they'll do anything to kind of spruce those up. The station little concept arts look pretty good. I don't mind those, but I'm really hoping the towers get kind of something put on them.
Yeah, even if it was just some kind of like they planted a couple trees around it or something. Like, come on.
Yeah, it looks like very low effort put in so far.
So after that, we've got all new Play Disney Parks app launching this summer at Walt Disney World and Disneyland. This was your article, Brian, so I'll pass this off to you because I kind of quickly glanced over this.
Yeah, so there's not much word out now on what exactly this is going to be, but there is a new app that's coming to Android and iOS that is going to be somewhat interactive and allow you to do different things around the park. According to this article, it is going to have activities that will interact with your surrounding environment. So I'm kind of thinking this is going to be somewhat of a play off of Sorcerer's the Magic Kingdom. You know, I think they're kind of taking hints from Pokemon Go's success and trying to implement something like that in there. But I'm kind of curious to see how this goes. You know, I'm definitely the kind of person that doesn't like to see people walking around Disney with their noses in their phone the entire time, because I feel like you miss a lot of the theming in the park. But I can also see this done correctly that might bring out maybe some of the lesser noticed theming details around the park with the app's interactivity, you know. So it's kind of up in the air to see how Disney does this before I make a decision on whether or not I like it.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what exactly comes from this.
I mean, it's definitely interesting. I kind of agree with Brian in the whole, like, I don't want to see people shove their noses in their phones and all, but, you know, Pokemon Go had such a big success and you saw it all over, even in the Disney parks. Like, Disney can't not respond to something like that that's going on.
Yeah.
So, do we want to dive into the topic?
Let's do it.
Okay, so this week we're going to start talking about some stuff that Disney's done that hasn't been so favorable. We've talked about some things on here before, but I think this week we're going to really sit down and discuss some things and maybe why they weren't as successful as Disney would have liked them to be. So first up on our list is the pink birthday cake castle that Disney did for, which anniversary was that again?
25th, I think.
Sounds about right, maybe. But for, you know, let's lump this into one big thing and just say decorating the castle in general, because we can definitely lump in the Stitch's Great Escape one in there as well. But for those of you that don't know, Disney has done a couple things with their castle, with Cinderella's castle, where one, they transformed it into a giant birthday cake, and two, they covered it in toilet paper and graffiti for the opening of Stitch's Great Escape. Now, with a lot of these, we are also probably going to have opinions that maybe they weren't such a bad thing that Disney has done. And like, for example, I don't really think that the whole Stitch's Great Escape thing was awful, especially because it was only like for a very short period of time. So that they're kind of going to all tie into each other. What do you guys think about the castle decorations?
Personally, I think both of these examples were terrible. I'm not going to ever say that the castle shouldn't be touched, because, you know, there's certain things, like I definitely like them putting lights on it at Christmas. And I think there's certain things that you could do to it, you know, that wouldn't receive a lot of backlash, but I don't think it's a good idea to use it as like a promotional thing for a new character or something like they did with Stitch. And just personally, the design of the birthday cake castle I thought was just really bad.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm kind of at with it. Like, I'm not opposed to them doing things like that as long as it's not for a very long period of time.
Because I mean, it is Disney's image, you know. I mean, like, this is the probably most notable feature at the Disney parks is the castle. So I don't think it's the thing that you should be kind of experimenting around with these design ideas.
Exactly.
I'm going to pretend that I heard everything that you said because my internet died for a second.
To sum it up, we basically said that it's not horrible, but it's also not something that Disney should do.
I think that if it's sparingly, I don't have a huge problem with it. Like, I understand why people would hate it, because if they're trying to get their like once in a lifetime picture in front of the castle, then that's going to kind of suck. But at the same time, I think it's kind of cool that they do like interesting things from time to time, especially the ones that like the Stitch's Great Escape one. That was like only there for like that day or like a couple days, right?
Yeah, and that's where I kind of stand with it too, is like, if you're going to do something like that where it's like a fun one-off thing, that's cool. And I mean, at this point in the game, it would probably generate a lot of social media hype, and I think that that's something that Disney would really want. But the whole Stitch's Great Escape thing was not well received at all. So I know that that's such a polarizing thing for the Disney community.
See, I didn't hate it. Like, I thought it was kind of cool. But I think the problem that most people have is when the change is not quote unquote classy looking. Like Brian was saying, he has no problem with the Christmas lights. A lot of people liked whatever that celebration was where they had all the gold picture, like the gold picture frame of Cinderella, I think, and they added like gold accents to the turrets and stuff. I think a lot of people liked that because it didn't take away a whole lot. It just kind of added some extra flair.
Yeah.
So I get it, but at the same time, I like when Disney tries new things.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that anytime that you change such an iconic thing in the parks, there's going to be met with a lot of backlash. Like, could you imagine if they seriously changed, like completely overhauled the Haunted Mansion or Pirates of the Caribbean? Like, that would be a massive outlash. So anytime that like something isn't quote unquote the way it should be, I think that we're going to see a lot of like angry Disney.
I think the best example of that, like to tie it to a ride, is when the Tiki Room was under new management.
Oh yeah.
You can't take something classic, that big of an icon at Disney, and try to update it with new characters, I think. And you know, that's on a much smaller scale than messing with the castle too, and that received almost, you know, unanimously bad opinions.
Yeah, definitely.
See, I guess maybe I should wait until we get to our unpopular opinions, but since it's on topic, I never actually experienced under new management, but I watched a video of it and I didn't think it was terrible. Like, I definitely didn't prefer it to the actual just Tiki Room, but I didn't think it was as terrible as most people thought. And I think if they had spun it as like, this is a temporary thing, that people wouldn't have minded it as much. But because everyone, like, I believe the intention was like, if this is successful, this is the way it's going to stay, but it wasn't. So plus the Iago animatronic caught on fire, but so they like changed it back. But I guess part of it's also because I thought the like featuring of Oa is pretty cool, just because of Trader Sam's. But Anyway, that's my unpopular opinion. I didn't think it was terrible.
I mean, it wasn't, but it's one of those things where, like Brian said, it's a classic attraction, and to see it replaced with something that's, for the most part, like, the thing with that is that both of those movies that, Iago and Zazu come from are from our generation. Like, it's more generational than anything.
Yeah. And it's not canon, so that's kind of probably a problem a lot of people had.
I guess so.
But I mean, I guess I am thinking of it more in the sense of how they do Haunted Mansion Holiday and like Space Mountain Ghost Galaxy and Disneyland. How people know that like this is temporary, this is just going to be this time of year. So they're fine with it. And I know that Disneyland is mostly locals, whereas Disney World is mostly tourists. But I think, like I said, if Disney were to do changes like that and just be transparent, like this is temporary, it's going to go back, then I think a lot of people would have less problems with changes like that.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, there's still also some flack, or at least there was a little bit when it really first started going off for Haunted Mansion Holidays. Like, a lot of people weren't really into that. So I don't know. I think that it depends on how long they do it, what they do to it, and what if it's like a change that is going to affect that once in a lifetime trip kind of thing.
I think maybe it's just because I'm the kind of person that goes so often that, the best example for me is the Jingle Cruise. It's a very subtle addition to the Jungle Cruise. And I don't think anybody goes on that, during the holidays if they're, an out-of-town guest that's on vacation that doesn't get to go very often. I don't think anyone goes on it and says, oh, man, I wish it was just the Jungle Cruise, I think it can be done very well. And I kind of actually wish that more rides did that.
I see. That's the thing. I can agree with something like the Jingle Cruise where it's very slight. And it's like, the thing about that is the Jungle Cruise doesn't really change because it's the Jingle Cruise. Yeah, the jokes do, and there's decorations on the ride. But then you kind of get that like gray area where it's something like Haunted Mansion Holiday where it's entirely different. Where it's like, that's not the Haunted Mansion. It's just the story of Nightmare Before Christmas. And I think that's where a lot of the issue comes from.
Mm-hmm.
So do we want to talk about this next one that we have on here?
I'm very unqualified, but I will do my best.
So
I've spoken my opinion on this plenty of times.
We can still kind of talk about it though, because it's still a somewhat polarizing decision, but let's just say the overall changes done to Journey into Imagination. I'm not really going to say much about this because I don't have too much experience with anything besides the last one. And it's one of those things where it's very, very hard to say anything when it's an attraction that you actually kind of don't hate. So spoiler for one of my Disney guilty pleasures.
It's one of the few rides at Disney that just feels cobbled together for me, and that's so out of place. Like there's certain things that I don't necessarily, think are the best at Disney World, but this really just feels like they were kind of throwing pieces together as it went along, and they didn't really sit down and have like a conscious plan the whole way through what this ride was going to be.
Yeah, like I've probably said before, I never experienced the original iteration, but I think the general consensus is that it was the best version. But I watched, I can't remember what YouTube channel it was. It may have been Defunct Land. They had a like section on this whole, I guess, transformation of this ride. And from what I could see, the ride was like insanely like detailed and complicated at the very beginning. It had like 5 different theaters or something. I don't know if this is actually what it like came out to be. Like I said, I never wrote it, but my whole thing about it is that I really like the Figment comics. So the fact that Dreamfinder used to be a thing in the parks is kind of sad to me because I would have really liked to experience the ride as it used to be, being a fan of the comics.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that, Dreamfinder isn't in the new one at all just seems so weird. He was such a beloved character, and they just completely did away with him in the new one.
Yeah, that is really weird, and I don't understand why they did that. Like, not only was he a big part of, or not only was he like, a big part of the ride, but he was really popular in terms of like characters in Epcot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did they, like, is there ever been, I guess, found out like an actual reason for why they decided to make such major changes to a ride that was successful? It's like, I get making changes to a ride that everybody hates, but why would you change a ride that everybody liked?
If there was, I've never heard of it.
Yeah. It just seems like weird and unnecessary. Like, instead of putting that money into something else, they decided, this thing that everybody likes, let's totally change it.
Yeah, I wish we had an explanation for that. But sorry,
I was just going to say another thing I think is that's really unfortunate about the current iteration of it, from what I saw on that little kind of documentary thing I watched, was how much disarray the, like, I guess, after show part of it has become. It's like,
for sure,
it's like embarrassing. Like,
it's very embarrassing.
Yeah, it's especially compared to what it used to be. It's just not like, there's nothing imaginative about it. Like, the only thing I could even remember that's in there is like, you can make an electronic greeting card to email with Figment on it. I don't know if you guys have more insight into this, but I remember being extremely underwhelmed by it.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't even been on Journey to Imagination in probably the past year, but I just remember the last time getting off and just thinking, man, this is a sad area. Like, there's like two locations on Disney property that I get sad at, and that's like leaving the gates on like my last day of a trip, and then like the exit of Journey to Imagination.
Oh my gosh.
So, as someone that actually kind of mildly enjoys this attraction, the exit area, are you talking about like the place that has the interactive like displays and stuff?
Yeah, that place.
Because there are a couple things in there. Like, it's nothing really outstanding, but it's like you have a thing where you move your arms like you're conducting, and Figment plays instruments, like that thing. There's the postcard thing like you were talking about. Like, it's all stupid things like that. And kind of like what you were saying, it sucks because if you look back at, the original exit of this attraction, it was so much more in depth than it is now. And it's just a shame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Plus, I'm really sad that I never got to go through that rainbow tunnel.
Yeah, same.
I'm just really hoping that this, along with some of the other pavilions, are, a part of this big upgrade that's coming to Future World in the next couple of years.
I mean, it has to be, because like, between this, like, the building is so cool looking.
It really is.
They really, like, they can't ignore the fact that such a cool looking building has such a lame, like, such lame stuff inside of it. I think between this and Innoventions, they really got to do some upgrades and give Future World some love.
Mm-hmm.
Innoventions is that thing that, like you were saying, Brian, that you get really sad going through this area. Yeah. I get really sad about going through Innoventions.
Yeah, I mean, it's true, because I mean, when you see some of the stuff that they used to do in the past, and just the overall like idea of it is very cool, but they're just not executing anything with it.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying, is like, with Innoventions, why did they just take stuff away? Like, it's not like they replaced it with different things or they're doing anything with that space other than like some kiosks for the festivals and that new like interactive show that they have. But other than that and Colortopia, is there even anything in these buildings?
I mean, they took arguably the best attraction out of there, so probably not.
Yeah. I don't understand changing it for the sake of changing it without actually improving anything.
So the next one that we have on here is retheming of Classic Tomorrowland. I'm not sure who put that in there and what you mean by it. So whoever that was, you're gonna have to take over from here.
That was mine. You know, this was the classic, like very white, like clean looking Tomorrowland that ran from basically the park opening until the mid 90s. And then they basically redid the entire color scheme and design of all the exteriors to kind of what you see today. And this was one of the big things that I know was, you know, pretty universally hated upon by Disney fans. You know, that the new look just wasn't really fitting with Tomorrowland and the idea, I guess, behind it. And I kind of feel like it's just carried through today, where you see Tomorrowland at and kind of this thrown together mess of attractions that don't really seem to have a lot to do with each other. I kind of feel like the theming also isn't doing a lot to tie the different rides together.
Yeah. I know we've talked about this in several other episodes of how Tomorrowland doesn't really have an identity anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of to bring up a point that I have a little further down on the list, I think it's really a shame that Disney didn't put a whole lot of money into marketing for the movie Tomorrowland, because I feel like if they were going to retheme it, that some really cool stuff could have come from that movie. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's actually a really good movie in my opinion. You know, it's like, it's got George Clooney and Hugh Laurie. It's like, you know, it's got big name actors in it. And I think the story's pretty cool, and it has like Disney references in it, like Small World and stuff, and the World's Fair. And I think that they could have taken that and used it to their advantage so much. But like, being a Disney fan, I didn't see any advertising for that. And like, I'm actively looking for Disney stuff on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. So I feel like they just really messed up with the marketing on that one. And it's a shame that they could have had something really awesome for Tomorrowland.
I mean, I haven't seen it either, but I mean, just on that point, you know, almost every Disney movie that comes out is very, very heavily advertised. It's very strange that this one wasn't.
Mm-hmm. I don't understand the logic. As like, you know, Disney's had several kind of flops, like especially live action ones in the past 5 or 10 years. But in my opinion, some of the other flops, like whatever, the Lone Ranger and stuff like that, doesn't really have like a cool pull to it.
Yeah, but they've advertised that. That's the thing. Like, that's exactly what you're saying.
I don't understand the logic. It's like that. I didn't care at all about when I heard that movie was coming out. I was like, okay, well, I'm probably never gonna watch that because I don't care. But then when Tomorrowland, the only reason I even really knew about it was because I went to New York Comic Con and they did a panel with the cast of Tomorrowland and the cast of Big Hero 6. And obviously I went to it. And I got to see like little clips from Tomorrowland, and I was like, wow, this looks really cool. Why haven't I heard about this movie? And I never heard anything else about it again until I watched it.
Yeah. And I mean, you would think that if Disney would have put a bunch of money into this in advertising, they would kind of be killing two birds with one stone, because they're advertising for this upcoming movie, but kind of to an aside, they're also advertising for their parks.
Mm-hmm. Man, you guys should watch it. If I know Brian said that you haven't, but I don't know if you've watched it, Mario. If you haven't, you really should. I think it's a great movie.
I have it. I have the DVD. It came from my Disney Movie Club thing, and I just have not gotten around to watching it. It's been sitting on my shelf for the longest time, and I've actually put it in my DVD player to watch a couple times, but I've never seriously sat down to watch it.
Oh man, like I don't like a whole lot of live action Disney movies, but this is one that I really, really enjoyed. And it's like Damon Lindelof was the director, if I'm not mistaken, or he may be the screenwriter, but he's really talented. Like he's done, I don't know if you guys ever watched The Leftovers on HBO, and he did the Star Trek Into Darkness movie. Like he's a big name. So it just doesn't make sense why this flopped so hard.
Right.
But
I don't know. That is a good one though. Like that's a good thing to think about. I'm just kind of surprised that we haven't heard anything about Tomorrowland's identity, back to like the point of the retheming. Like you said a couple times, we beat that dead horse of Tomorrowland does not have an identity anymore. We have no idea what it's supposed to be, and now it's becoming more IP central than Epcot is, and no one's really complained about that. But I would just like for once for them to just come out and say, listen, this is what we're going to do with Tomorrowland. I feel like that's the next land that needs some love.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, definitely.
So we kind of touched on the other one that you had down here, Beth, but do we want to talk about the Song of the South one?
I mean, we can. I've never seen Song of the South, but that just sounded like a PR nightmare for Disney. Just sounds like it was a really bad decision.
Yeah, I don't really know what else we could say about it, but I don't know.
I think it is interesting that there, some of the old movies like Song of the South and, Fantasia has that scene, the Pastoral Symphony, that they edited the character Sunflower out of because it was so racially insensitive. I think it's so interesting that it's such a different time now than it used to be. Like the fact that someone thought, this is okay, I'm going to put this in this movie.
Right, that this wasn't just like one person's slip up. This was a team of people deciding to animate this, it getting approved, and it getting put into a theatrical release of a movie.
Mm-hmm. And for those listening, you can Google it. I'm sure you can find Song of the South somewhere. I've never watched it, but for the Fantasia thing, this character Sunflower was, the whole Pastoral Symphony is like these centaurs, like half human, half horse women. And there's like all of them except for one are white, and they have like long flowing hair and like makeup on. And then you have Sunflower, who's like this little black girl, and the whole time in all the scenes, she's like shining their hooves and like carrying their tail for them and stuff. And it just blows my mind that it's like, yeah, this is fine. Let's keep it in.
And it's just the, like stereotypical, like blackface type animation that was kind of prevalent back in those days. And it's just, I don't know, you're right. Just in this day and age, it's so strange to think that could be put into a movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And it's like you said, it's one of those things that it's more baffling that it was okay by a whole team of people rather than like someone just going in and saying, yeah, maybe that's not right.
Right. That like the majority of people didn't speak up and say, hey guys, this is not going to look good in like 20 years. We should probably keep that out.
Yeah.
So are there any other ones that you guys wanted to talk about? Anything else you could think of that's like maybe not such a great Disney decision? Or we want to talk about the things that we can yell at each other for?
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, I'm sure there's something that we're not thinking of. So if you're listening and you think of one, shoot us an email.
Yeah, let us know. We've had quite a few people emailing us, and I apologize because I want to get this out now because I was reading through our email inbox, and I realized there were some people I didn't really respond to right away, and it took me like maybe a month to respond to some of those early emails. So I apologize for that first and foremost, and I've been trying to keep up with reading them on the show, like highlighting them or marking them or something so that we know to read them. But if we didn't read an email from you guys, I apologize. Let us know and we'll be sure to bring it up. But yes, please send us your things that you thought of that Disney didn't do so hot with. So for our Disney confessions, we should just take a moment to express the time or the things that, you know, maybe we love that are not so widely received, or things that, you know, we hate that are probably very popular. Is there anyone that wants to go first, or are we all too afraid?
I'm not afraid. I don't know if I should start with my like least shocking or most shocking.
Just rush right out of the gate with it.
All right. Well, if you've listened to past episodes, you've probably heard this, but I feel like this is like the bottom, like the 2% of the Disney fan population that I'm in, is that I am not a fan of Space Mountain, just in general. And the reason why, in case you haven't heard me talk about it previously, is that I think that it's, first of all, it's kind of become dated, in my opinion. And I don't think that the effects are as cool as they could be. But I would say that 90% of the reason that I am not a fan of it is because I always feel like my head's going to get chopped off.
I always feel like that too, but I don't hate Space Mountain. For some reason, I find myself riding that every trip, even though I'm like, I'm going to lose my head.
I know, that's what makes it exciting.
And I think also part of the reason I don't like it is because there isn't as much, and this is like such an old person thing to say, but there's not as much like support on like your back and neck as the other roller coasters. So I always feel like I like hurt when I get off of it. And maybe it's just because I'm getting on up there at 27 years old, but
Oh, man. You know, the one thing I will say though that I dislike about Space Mountain, and I keep hoping that this is going to come in a refurbishment sometime, but that they'll actually add side-by-side seating like they have at Disneyland.
yeah, that would be cool. And I
Like-
think also like it's just so jaggy. Like if you're on the back car, it's like significantly rougher,
Mhm.
which I think is another thing that they can improve.
I feel like if they were to expand it to make it 2 tracks, that would take like a full closure refurbishment and like retracking.
Oh yeah, it probably would. But the thing that I hate is that this and like Test Track, the rides are divided up into like sections of 3. Like every time I have a picture getting off of Space Mountain, I'm usually either in like it's me and my wife, or we're in a group with like, you know, other couples. So it's, you know, we're either by ourselves with some random person throwing the picture, or somebody got cut out of our group in the picture. So it's
Yeah.
always been really annoying to me.
My favorite is when you get those pictures and like either the ride vehicle wasn't moving as fast as it should have been, or something happened and your face is like in the corner under the Space Mountain logo. Those are my favorite.
Or, and I've noticed this on one too. I think it's kind of depending on how the person's leaning at the time, but like the flash won't really catch like the front person, and they're like completely in the dark, and then the people on the back are very well lit.
I've seen that too. So I'll throw mine out there. My not so shocking one. I think I'm one of the few people that doesn't actually find the Figment from this iteration of Journey into Imagination as annoying as most people. And a lot of that stems from some sentimental value and memories from previous trips where we would ride that one ride specifically because my aunt used to like the older versions. But I'm one of those people that's not totally afraid to admit that they still kind of care about Figment after that.
Well, I definitely still care about Figment. Like, I have way more Figment merchandise than I probably should. But again, going back to what I was saying earlier, is because of the comics, I don't know. I definitely find the Figment in the ride to be pretty annoying. And I don't know how he was in previous iterations, but I just feel like that's not the Figment that I buy merchandise for. I buy Figment for the comic book.
Right.
Well, and it's kind of like they took the kooky sidekick and made him the main character in the attraction, which I think is the biggest issue with it. You know, he's fine is kind of like the laugh on the side, but I don't think he should be front and center in the attraction like he is.
Yeah.
And also, from what I've heard, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, because you rode the original, right?
I haven't ridden it. I've watched plenty of ride-through videos and, you know, done a lot of digging into the history of it, but I don't ever remember riding the original one.
Okay, well, you're definitely going to be more knowledgeable anyway. So correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've heard in the previous iterations, Figment was like, he kind of had like this childlike sense of wonder, and they kind of turned him into this like prankster who sprays skunk farts on you.
Yeah, it's pretty much.
Which I think is unfortunate.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing that stinks. Like, in comparison to what he used to be, yeah, that's really sad. But from the point of sentimental value, I'll still ride it. So Brian, what's your confession?
All right. Well, I think I went into this a little bit wrong about the overall ideas, but because I have some, like, I thought this was going to be like stuff that we've done while in the park that we were like kind of embarrassed about. But
oh no, I definitely want to hear that too.
Oh goodness. Okay. But I guess to start off on this kind of one, I've talked at length about, you know, liking Country Bear Jamboree as much as I do, and I think there's at least a decent amount of people that like Country Bear Jamboree, but one that I almost always hear people hating on that I really love is Swiss Family Treehouse. I really love these type of walkthrough attractions. It's kind of like a mini Tom Sawyer Island, in my opinion, and I actually wish that Disney did more stuff like this.
I like Swiss Family Treehouse too. My issue with it, and I don't know how this could possibly be resolved, but I would like it significantly more if I didn't feel rushed every time I do it. I always feel like people are like walking up behind me and I can't take the time that I want to. But I totally agree with you. I like the walkthrough type of attractions and wish they would do more.
I know I've said this before. I want them to update Swiss Family Treehouse specifically because I feel like it has no value for like kids today, as old as that makes me sound.
I mean, I don't think it really has value for our generation either.
It doesn't. But that's the thing, is like if it had some kind of like attraction, or not even attraction, but like IP value for any more recent generation, I think it would be more appreciated than it is now. I think a lot of the problem is like who really knows and cares about the Swiss Family Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying is Disney needs to remake Swiss Family Robinson.
I mean, that's an answer to that too.
It's not a bad idea.
I don't know how well that'd be received, but I mean, it's an option.
Very well, but regardless, I like the attraction.
I see, and that's the thing. I like it too. I think that it's a good attraction, and we need more stuff like that where it's just kind of a walkthrough interactive thing. My favorite thing that I've ever heard coming out of that, though, is I heard someone go, "That's it," after leaving Swiss Family Treehouse. So I feel like people get in line for it expecting that to be the cue for something and then leaving and like being totally disappointed.
Mm.
All right, so we're gonna just go in a circle. Is that how y'all want to do it?
Sure, we can just go in a circle. I only have a couple, so we
All
can
right.
go until we run out and then just tap out.
Well, here's another one that I've talked about before, but for those who have not heard every episode, here's my unpopular opinion: is that Mickey pretzels suck.
Blasphemy.
Bland. They are chewy. They're dry. I don't like anything about them except for the fact that they're Mickey shaped. And I know on a previous episode, Brian made the point that it tastes better because it's Mickey shaped versus if it was exactly the same recipe, not Mickey shaped. And I will agree with that. But other than that, literally being Mickey shaped, I don't think there's any redeeming quality about these pretzels. And it blows my mind that so many people talk about Mickey pretzels and have t-shirts and hats. And that's like that's their Dole Whip. Like Dole Whip for me, like somebody's Dole Whip is a Mickey pretzel. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get that either. I think it's the whole everything's better Mickey shaped thing.
Yeah, but there are so many things that are Mickey shaped that are delicious.
That's
like
the thing. These
Mickey bars and ice cream sandwiches and whatever.
Yeah, and they're usually sold at the same carts the churros are at, and like, how are you gonna get a pretzel over the churros?
Right. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know. So I guess mine, and I've talked about this a little bit. I'll bring up the one that I brought up before, but I don't really hate Stitch's Great Escape as much as everyone does, which is weird to say because I don't think it's a good attraction by any means, but I also don't think that it's as horrible as everyone says. If they got rid of the chili dog smell, I'd be totally cool with it.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't like it at all, but I don't like have a burning hate for it either.
I think that's where like I'm kind of at, because not like where I'm at, because on one hand I really love Stitch, so I think maybe that has something to do with it, but it's one of those things where everyone just like rags on it. Everyone hates it in the Disney community, but I'm just here like, it's not as awful as it could be. It could be way worse.
Yeah. Like, I think it's a bad attraction, but I also think that most of the hate it gets is kind of just like people jumping on the bandwagon and it kind of being an in-joke in the Disney community.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But at the same time, like, is there an attraction that you guys would consider worse than Stitch's Great Escape?
Yeah, Journey into Imagination.
Okay, other than that.
and I've said that I don't hate either of them. Wow. See, that's the thing, is like, maybe it's just me being like super biased, but I don't think Disney has done an awful attraction to the point that I'm like super against it. Like, I'm not one of those people that's like, shut down Stitch's Great Escape right away, even though, you know, it is shut down. But I don't know. I didn't have any feelings about it leaving, and I also wouldn't have had feelings if they had just kept it there.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely am excited at the prospect of it becoming something else, but I don't like, it doesn't keep me up at night.
Yeah. So next
back
one
to me.
Yeah.
Okay. I still have not seen Happily Ever After, which on its own is pretty bad, but I've also been to Magic Kingdom like no less than 10 times since the show switched over, and I still haven't seen it. Yeah, I still feel bad about that. I feel like I need to do it, especially, you know, since I'm doing this podcast. I feel like it's kind of like basic Disney stuff that I should have experienced before, but I still haven't. To my defense, I'm hardly ever there at night. The last 2 times that I can remember being there at night was for the Halloween party and for the Christmas party, which, of course, they weren't doing Happily Ever After then. So I guess that helps me sleep better at night if I think about it that way. But yeah.
See, don't feel bad because there's plenty of things that I haven't done. I mean, obviously, I haven't gone as much as you, but still.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like most other people, like any other big Disney fan that goes as often as I do, has done a lot of the things that I haven't. I mean, this is one of the few things I can really think of, but still, it's like it's a pretty major one. And I don't know. I'm just hardly there at night. So
Yeah.
I do really want to see it. It's like it's not for not wanting to see it. It's just like when I go, I'm thinking like, man, I always have an extra, probably 2 hours by the time I leave Magic Kingdom until I'll actually get home. By the time I get back to my car and drive, so to stay that late is usually a hard sell.
And I think a lot of that has to do with you being local.
Yeah.
Like if you were there on a stay-in trip at one of the resorts, I think you'd probably have that time to go through and do, what you want to do.
Oh, absolutely. And the last 2 times that I stayed were for the Halloween and Christmas party. So.
Right. And you didn't really have the option because obviously they're not there. So. Yeah. I want to say let's do one more, and then there's 2 emails, I think, that I want to read. So let's do one more, and then we'll tie that up. Yeah.
All right. So I feel like I'm not going to be alone in this, like between the 3 of us, but this is something that I see or have seen a lot of people hate. But I liked the Sorcerer Mickey had at Hollywood Studios.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
I was like, I'm probably in good company with this, but yeah, I see so much hate. Like, well, more so when it was there rather than now that it's gone. But I just never really understood why everyone hated it so much.
I think it gave Hollywood Studios an icon that it never really had.
I agree.
People can argue the Earful Tower, but I don't think it was like iconic enough to really be considered the park icon. The Great Movie Ride wasn't tall enough, really, in my opinion. It physically wasn't big enough to be a park icon. I think the Sorcerer's Hat was that for Hollywood Studios. I mean, that's what they kind of used for the icon when they would do like the 4 park icons on merchandise. It was usually the Sorcerer Hat. So.
Right. And like you said, the Great Movie Ride wasn't big enough to be an icon. The Earful Tower's like off to the side. Like you pretty much don't even notice, like you wouldn't have even noticed it if you weren't paying attention. And then a lot of people would argue that Tower of Terror could be considered the park icon, I guess, especially now that there's not really one. But that's also kind of off to the side. Whereas if you think of the other 3 parks, the icon is like, when you walk in, this big extravagant thing, and that's what the Sorcerer Hat was. And I wonder what they're gonna do in the future. Like, I guess, are they using Tower of Terror currently as the icon?
It's probably going to be the Chinese theater because I feel like to our generation of Disney park goers, like the people that started going when we were younger and stuff like that, the Sorcerer's Hat was your icon. Like it was right there. It was in the center of the park. It was right up front. And, a lot of people argued for the Chinese theater to be the icon because of that reason. Unfortunately, the hat blocked it. I didn't mind the hat. I didn't think that it was a bad addition. And I honestly think that, like Brian said, it gave Hollywood Studios a more clear park icon. I just feel like its time probably came. And not that they can really tie anything to be the icon for this park now, but it definitely wasn't that.
Well, it hurt my soul to watch it come down in pieces.
Yeah. And that was a slow process.
It was so slow.
Oh.
R.I.P. hat.
So my next confession, and I feel like this is kind of a dumb one, but I honestly do not think that Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is worth any type of wait that it gets. I don't think that it's worth anything above even 20 minutes, and that may be a little harsh, but I feel like the ride itself lacks so much. It's so short, and it even the things like the rocking train cars that they advertised, I don't think I've ever felt that once. So to me, I feel like that's an attraction that falls flat on a lot of the promises that they put out there. And I also feel like it gets a lot more of a wait time than it really deserves.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It always has a huge wait time.
I would never ride it without a fast pass.
Yeah. I mean, the dark ride elements of it I think are cool, but the actual ride system, it's not worth the wait.
Well, here's the thing, and you guys know this about me, that like I've said it on the show 1,000 times. I hate projection-faced animatronics, so that doesn't help because the whole dark ride portion of it is all those projection-faced animatronics outside of that one section at the end. But like even that, it lasts about 5 seconds. And the other thing that really gets me, and I don't know if this was just bad advertising on Disney's part. I don't know if it was like me expecting more. But I remember when that ride first opened and we were coming in, we were on the Magical Express to go there, and they played a video of the dark ride portion of Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. And I honestly feel like I could have just watched that, and that was all I needed from that ride. Like all it was the dopey projection face, and it was just, I don't know.
It's very underwhelming. I totally agree.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing is like you build it up in your head because, I remember when this ride came out, I was so excited for it. All that other stuff. And then it's that short. It's not really that exciting. And then even the wait time, you're standing in line for 45 minutes. You're like, okay, there's got to be something good going on here. And then you get off after 7 seconds of ride time and you're like, that wasn't worth it.
Yeah. The only ride that I think I've intentionally gone in knowing I'm going to be here for more than 45 minutes was Flight of Passage on my last trip, and it was 100% worth it every time.
But that's the thing, though. I think like a ride like Flight of Passage deserves that kind of wait.
Right.
Like if it's something innovative and, exciting, by all means. And honestly, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is probably exciting to someone, but it's just not me.
It's like I could see it as like my first roller coaster,
Yeah.
But aside from that, I could take it or leave it.
So Brian, what's your final Disney confession?
Okay, so like I said earlier, I guess I sort of misunderstood what this was supposed to be because when I heard personal Disney shames, I thought this was supposed to be like things we had done in the park that we were shameful of.
Oh no, I'm excited for this one
Yeah,
now.
me too.
I'll tell this story anyways because I always thought it was somewhat funny. And I'll preface this by saying I'm definitely not recommending you do this because there's a reason that there's height limits on rides and stuff. But when I was a kid, we went one time, and I don't know how old I was. I must have been 6 or so, and I was a fairly short kid, I guess, when I was that age. Anyways, I remember we went one year, and I always loved like roller coasters and stuff, and I wanted to go on some of the bigger ones, like Rock and Roller Coaster and stuff. They were there at the time, and I was like an inch under the minimum height to be on these. And I remember like we went and I couldn't get on it, and I was getting frustrated and upset throughout the day because I wasn't able to get on any of these things. So me and my parents went out later that night, and we went to like Walmart or somewhere, and this is gonna sound so stupid, but we bought a pair of like the women's like wedge flip-flops and we cut the like strap part out of them and glued them onto the bottom of my shoes and went back to the parks the next day. And I'm telling you, it worked. I got on all the rides. I was close before, but it just gave me that little bit more that I needed. And I'll always remember that because like I was so excited that it worked, that nobody figured it out that we had done that. Like I said, don't really look at your shoes while they're doing it, but
that is hilarious.
I don't recommend that. It's a safety thing, but
that's wow.
If I had to go back, I'm sure I would do it again. So,
oh my god, that's so funny. I literally feel like that's something that you would see in a movie.
So is there any last minute ones you guys want to throw out there, or should I read these emails?
I think I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay. So we had a couple things come in these last 2 weeks. We just never actually really had the chance to record last week, so I apologize that there was no episode up. But we had an email come in from our friend April. She mentioned that she loved the resort episode, which a lot of people were giving us pretty positive feedback on that. I'm very happy with that. But she said that she's staying at Riverside for a couple nights at the end of the month, and it's the first time that she's going to be staying there. She's hopping to Poly for breakfast, and Trader Sam's is another one of her first that she's going to be doing that trip. But she wanted to know if there was any snacks that she should really be looking out for. I would assume anywhere in the park is free game, but she's looking at some snack credits, and she wants to cover those snacks, and she wants our help. So anything you guys want to throw out there for April?
Dole Whips, obviously.
I knew you were going to say that.
Number one.
Yeah, I mean, definitely that. I guess slightly off of her actual question. I know she said that she's hopping over to the Poly for breakfast. I'm assuming she's going to Kona Cafe, and I'm going to say you have to get the Tonga toast.
That is on my list to try.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about Tonga toast. While she's there, can't she get a Dole Whip at the Poly? So she could probably do a lot of her stuff at the Poly.
There you go.
I mean, I'm partial to school bread as another snack. That's a good one. I don't know. Snack credits.
Don't get the Mickey pretzel. That's for sure.
But snack credits are always a hard thing for me. Like I know I do dining plan, and I know I like, out of all of us, I think I'm the one that does it the most, if at all. But whenever we do it, we always use ours. Like, this is my big tip. Use it for like pastries or something for breakfast, just to kind of like buy your time, and then use your regular dining credits for like your quick service, counter service would be your lunch, and then your sit down for dinner. And we used to do that a lot, where we would go to like the bakery in France early in the morning. Like, that would be where we would go as soon as World Showcase opens. We'd grab like, a pastry or something, and that would count as a snack credit for us. So that's my big thing with snack credits. I don't know if anybody else has any tips about it, but that's what I like to do with them.
Well, I've never done the dining plan before, and it's a good thing that April brought this question up, because one thing that I see a lot, and I don't know if you've dealt with this before, Mario, but I see a lot of people complaining that at the end of their trips, they have a lot of leftover snack credits, so they just end up going and blowing on like snacks to take home and stuff. Do you generally have a lot left over, or do you use yours pretty well throughout your trip?
It depends. If you're smart about it, like I said, doing things like that where you, like, even if you eat a Rice Krispie treat or something for breakfast, just something to kind of fill that slot where you're not going to have your sit down and your table service, you can be smart about it and manage your snack credits well enough that you can, use them all one per day. But generally, yeah, I have seen that happen. I've had it happen to me a couple times where at the end of my trip, I'm trying to like round up my credits and figure out what I can do with them to make the most out of the dining plan. And I think that's where it gets a lot of flack, is like, not only with those credits, but like people feel like you have to eat a lot in order to make it worth it. And for me, the dining plan's worth is more in knowing that I don't have to bring money into the parks, that it's all mostly covered except for tips.
I just want to say, you said Rice Krispie treat for breakfast, and I like your style.
It was just the first thing that popped into my head. Like, even if you take my advice and go to like the France bakery and grab a croissant or something and eat that for breakfast, or anywhere that you can find that breakfast snack credit, that would be my best advice for tracking them. But you could certainly use them for things like the cinnamon roll in Gaston's Tavern, or a Dole Whip or stuff like that. And I think it's all in how you want to use it is the best use of your snack credit.
So, I can't remember if she said what time of year she's going.
Oh, she's going this month.
Okay, so Flower and Garden, the kiosks, you can use snack credits at. So definitely like check them out, and all the menus are online if you want to look in advance and pick out a few. But I hear that those are generally pretty good value, and most of the stuff at the festivals I think is pretty tasty. I haven't had anything that I really hated for sure, but most of the stuff I think is pretty good. And it's like kind of cool and unique, like stuff that you can only get this time of year.
Yeah, and plus I think it's a lot of fun. You don't have to go and like commit to one type of food. You can go around and try different stuff as you walk around a little showcase.
Mm-hmm.
Another fun snack credit that's kind of off topic from that I went to go look something else up and this popped up. Zebra domes. If you don't have a reservation at any place that serves them, you can get them at most places in Animal Kingdom Lodge, I think. And you can pick up like a $4 pack of them, but I'm pretty sure they count as like a snack credit as well. And the thing that I was going to look up that I know is part of this now because I wanted to double check my information. LeFou's Brew is also a snack credit.
Oh,
so
man. And LeFou's Brew is excellent.
That is a very good use of a snack credit.
For sure. I want to throw out one that I feel like doesn't get as much love as it should. And I don't know for sure if this is a snack credit or not, but any of the like cinnamon glazed roasted nuts, like pecans and almonds and stuff, I think those are amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
That to me is like my Fantasmic snack because they're like the kiosk is always right outside.
That's another good thing. Like, grab yourself like some popcorn or like roasted nuts when you're watching Fantasmic or Happily Ever After. I know that, sometimes you can get wrapped up in the show, but having that snack is sometimes nice too.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, a lot of our correspondence this week was a lot of stuff about the resorts. I have to say, coming out of that episode and hearing all of these positive things and lots of experiences from people that have stayed at these resorts, I think that was really good. I really appreciate the time that people took to tell us about their trips. I know we had one of our listeners, Maria, telling us about the beach club. I don't know if you checked that comment out, Brian, but she talked about the pool and I was very jealous. We had a lot of people saying things about, we helped them a little bit with talking about the resorts that they're staying at in the future. So that was really cool. We really want to reiterate that we definitely appreciate you guys taking the time to tell us what you like about our show and what we can do better. So if there's ever anything you want to hear us talk about, as always, let us know. Did you want to read that one? I'm going to cut this part, but did you guys want to read that one from Juan from a while back that he responded to?
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Okay.
What are we talking about?
So I'll sum it up for you. So essentially we got an email a little while ago from one of our listeners who is going on a trip. They're doing 3 days in the parks, and I'll cut this part too, but it's a Make-A-Wish trip. They wanted to know if they can do 2 parks in one day and what our advice would be for that. I know Brian had answered this, but we kind of wanted to touch on this and, maybe if anybody else was thinking about it, kind of reiterate some information that we might have to give some tips to anyone that's thinking they might want to do 2 parks in one day.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to give them what your response was first, Brian? Or
yeah, hang on. Sorry. You want me to, I don't know where you stopped, where you were actually going to cut the audio, but
I mean, that was what I was going to,
okay.
I'll chop it out and then I'll chop the Make-A-Wish part and I'll chop the part about asking if we want to read that.
Yeah, but so we, I hear this a lot. People asking how best to split days at parks and which parks you really need to devote an entire day to. And in my opinion, with the state things are in right now at Disney World and with the construction stuff going on at different parks, I would suggest devoting an entire day at Magic Kingdom and an entire day at Animal Kingdom, and then splitting a day between Epcot and Hollywood Studios if you only have 3 days to go. I know plenty of people will probably disagree with me on this, and it really is hard for me to say to split Epcot and not spend a full day at it because it is very, very possible to spend multiple days at Epcot without running out of things to do. So it is hard for me to say that you should split it between Epcot and Hollywood Studios right now. But I think Magic Kingdoms is going to be the obvious for almost everyone to say that you need to spend a full day at Magic Kingdom. I mean, it has the most attractions, and you're going to have to spend a lot of time. Even if you're going fast, you're going to end up needing to spend at least a day there to get a lot of the stuff knocked out. And I think Animal Kingdom right now with Pandora, if you really want to do everything in Pandora, you're going to need to spend a whole day there. And I also think it's just a good park to spend a whole day in, because you can go and, if you want to hit the Pandora stuff early, the rest of the time at Animal Kingdom can be a really nice, like relaxing kind of, not necessarily laid back, because there is a lot of exciting stuff to do at Animal Kingdom, but it's not as hustle and bustle as being at Magic Kingdom and, waiting in a lot of queues and stuff. So I would definitely think that you would want to spend a day at Animal Kingdom and really take it in and enjoy it. Hollywood Studios is, I mean, that's the obvious one to say that you can just spend a half day in there, because even when it's running at full capacity, just with the amount of rides, I don't think there's much more than a half day's worth of stuff to do there. And, it kind of just leaves Epcot to throw in there then on your other half day, I think. But again, that's just my personal opinion. I'm sure a lot of people would not want to throw Epcot in on the other half day.
I think it all depends on what your group consists of. I mean, for this instance, we'll say that there were 2 children in this party. So to Brian's point, Epcot may not actually be the park that would be good for that kind of touring party. If your group, consists of some small kids and 2 adults, you're going to want to do all the attractions that are themed to the kids' needs. Specifically in that instance, Epcot would definitely be the park that you would want to size down, maybe do a half day of that, do the attractions in, Future World, and then maybe hop to Hollywood Studios or vice versa. Now, if you're a party of people our age or adults, you could spend a full day in Epcot. And honestly, you might even be able to spend a half day in Animal Kingdom. Knock out the Pandora rides, maybe do Expedition Everest, hop over to Hollywood Studios, do Tower of Terror and Test Track. It all really depends on what your party consists of and how intense you want to tour the parks. We've said that a couple times. You can tour the parks any way that you want to. Any make of group can really do whatever they want with them. But to look at the park from that perspective, if you've got kids, maybe downsize Epcot. If you don't, if you're a party of adults, you could probably shrink Hollywood Studios and Animal Kingdom.
I think if I had to pick, I would also go with what Brian said, but that's probably based on bias.
Yeah, and I that's the thing, like, if you want to do World Showcase, you're going to have to spend time there because it opens a little later. And I've said it before personally, Epcot is a park that you can really do whatever you want with it. It's what you make it. So I don't know. Mm-hmm. If you want to spend a whole day, you can. If not, don't. I know that's not really helpful, but that's the way that I look at it.
But I think we can all agree Magic Kingdom needs its own full day, and Hollywood Studios can be done in a half a day.
Oh, hands down.
So the real question, like Mario was saying, is look at your group and really decide if Epcot or Animal Kingdom wants to be the other one that you devote a full day to.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that. Oh, sorry, to reroute back to another email. If we're done with that one, are we done with that one?
I think so.
Okay. April had a couple other questions that I just realized. She wants to know, fitting a ferry ride to Disney Springs, what's the best time to do it and how long does it take? And anything at Poly and Riverside that she should check out, pin trading, secrets, entertainment, etc. Really wanted to reroute to that because entertainment, if you're at Riverside and you haven't checked out Yeehaw Bob, you're missing out.
Yep.
So you're doing something wrong there. But Yeehaw Bob, for the people that don't know, it's a fun, entertaining piano show that happens in the lobby of Port Orleans Riverside. It's usually typically later at night. Very, very fun show, very interactive. It's one of those hidden gems that Riverside has that really makes it more of a deluxe value resort for the moderate price.
Mm-hmm.
And ferry ride, that shouldn't typically take too long. I want to say it's maybe about a 20-minute, half-hour ride at most.
Oh, I was going to say shorter than that. I thought
Yeah, probably about 20 minutes max, if that.
Yeah.
They usually run like all day. If you're planning a Disney Springs day at all, just take the ferry.
I do think that there's definitely a schedule for it. I don't know exactly what it is off the top of my head, but worst case scenario, you can always take the boat there and then take a bus back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Though I would suggest if you are just able to do the ferry at any time, I think it's especially cool to do at night, which I also think is the best time to do Disney Springs just because of how cool the lights are and stuff there at night. So that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Anytime that you get to do anything at Disney at night, I'm all for it. I want to say that's it. Like I said, everything else was just people talking about resort stays. Real quick, I do want to ask a question to a listener if they are listening. I'm going to respond to your email, but this really intrigued me. One of our listeners, Vanessa, had shot us an email about some deluxe resorts that she had stayed at. Probably because Brian and I had such very little experience when we were talking about that. But one of her comments was, last summer I stayed at Beach Club level, free upgrade. I would like to know how you did that. So please send me an email response because I would really, I'm intrigued. So that's my my emails for this week that I wanted to go over.
Also, if you ever need like a buddy on one of these trips where you stay at Deluxe, I know a guy or a girl. Rather.
I know about 4 people that would like to stay with you. If you
right.
that.
Yeah, if anybody is interested in sponsoring a DVC membership for the podcast, just we'll let you know the address. You can just mail an envelope full of cash to. So
I'm gonna cut this, but I'm gonna laugh if one day we get an email and it's like, "Hey guys, I'm not using my DVC points, so here they are."
Oh my god, I would not mind at all. On a similar note, when Club 33 opens, anybody out there listening that has the Connect, I know some people who would gladly join you.
But seriously though, like anybody that is gonna have a Club 33 membership, because I can almost guarantee none of us will, I think that would be something we'd like to have someone come on the show and talk about.
Yeah,
sure.
That is definitely a unique experience.
Seriously, if you're thinking about getting one, if you have one, after you go, shoot us an email. We'll get you on the show. I will purposely make it happen just so you can talk about it. Tell us if you think it's worth it. Tell us, all that fun stuff. And we've had a couple people reach out to us and ask about maybe coming on the show and talking about some things. If you've ever done anything like super interesting at Disney or you have anything to bring to the table, let us know. We'll see what we can do about maybe getting you on just to kind of chat about it. But obviously in that instance, I do have to say we can't bring everyone on as much as we would love to. So it's got to be something that we either have no experience with or we will never have any experience with. Just to kind of put that barrier up there.
But feel free to send us emails all day.
Yes, it would definitely do that. Please send us emails, tell us how they are. Honestly, one of my favorite things to do has been respond to everyone that's sent us stuff. It's so much fun getting to talk to people and connect with people all over about Disney. That's one of the best things about doing this podcast.
Yeah.
So, is there anything you guys want to talk about before we wrap this week up?
I think I'm good.
Yeah.
I think I'm good too. And I'm going to stop this and record my outro later.